Hi, my name's Barbara and I'm here to tell you my story. I've had pancreatic cancer and I'm now recovered and back to nearly normal. But did you know that there are 10,000 diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the UK and 50,000 in the US? So I'm here to tell my story. Hello, my name's Barbara. I am 74 years old and I was born in Leicester. I have a brother who now lives in Doncaster, and I have a son and two daughters, two grandsons, 18 and 21, and a step-granddaughter who lives in Australia with two sons. So I've got two great-grandsons. I now live in Anstey, which is a lovely, lovely village, a bit more than a village really, but I live by myself, and then in 2015 I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I went straight into hospital immediately and was in hospital for 10 weeks because I had some complications, but I am now fit. I had my all clear scan 3 weeks ago and I'm now building my life back up.
Barbara's come in today to talk to us on the Cancer Stories programme. Thanks for joining us, Barbara. Barbara, you're the first patient we've had on Cancer Stories who's had a pancreatic cancer.
Oh.
So I'm really interested to hear what's happened to you on your journey, on your cancer experience so far. And I heard your introduction there. Am I right to understand you were diagnosed about a year ago now?
It was October the 14th last year. Yeah.
Okay, and how did it all come about? What do you remember about that early period?
Well, it was all a bit sudden and shocking because I'd had some itching, just itching, and we couldn't get to the bottom of it. So the doctor decided to do blood tests, and the blood test came back with the liver functions too high.
Yeah.
And I went for an ultrasound scan, and from there I had to go for a CT scan, and from there I was in the hospital. I came home just to pack a bag, and then they kept me in. So I was in altogether 10 weeks.
So you had quite a long stay.
I did, yeah.
You know, given you were relatively well up to that point.
I was as well as I'd ever been, yeah.
Did you have any warning signs before this happened?
No, nothing, just the itching. There was nothing else. No, I was completely well.
Okay. And what was the next step for you in hospital? Like, you know, during that 10 weeks, what was the order of events, so to speak?
Well, I was in the admissions ward for a bit, and they did blood tests and one thing and another. And then I went for a procedure to put a stent in. And after that, I think I had a couple of stents and things put in. And then they decided that before I had my op, which should have been on the 3rd of November, to remove one of the procedure things. And it tore a hole in the liver. So I had it's usually, I think, is supposed to heal itself, but for some reason it didn't. And so toxics were leaking into my body, and it made me very, very ill. So I was in ITU for, I don't really know, I don't remember anything of that period. I was straight away after that, when they started to get me well from that, got pneumonia, got a chest infection and then pneumonia. So I was back in ITU for another length of time. So I don't remember anything at all until I woke up, or seemed to wake up in ITU, and I was still had to get better before I could have my op.
So you had.
So it was quite a long journey. It was a month before I was well enough to have my op in the end. So instead of November the 3rd, I had it on December the 3rd.
Your operation was delayed because of the septicemia and pneumonia as well.
Yes.
What was the experience on ITU like? Because often people say it's quite a scary experience.
Not really. I don't remember most of it. I think I was on the way to getting better before I realised where I was. They'd got me on morphine, and I think I did a few stupid things while I was on morphine. I had hallucinations.
Absolutely, yeah.
And got a bit aggressive with the girls, with Paula.
When you visited her?
When she visited, yeah. And I couldn't eat. I had no appetite at all, so I was, getting a bit uptight about that.
Yeah.
It made me very grumpy, this morphine, as well as the hallucinations, which weren't pleasant.
Did it interfere with your sleep?
No. While I was in ITU, I seemed to sleep quite well, yeah. Mind you, I probably was drugged up, so it makes you sleep, doesn't it? Later on, after my operation, I had problems with the morphine.
Often those hallucinations which occur result from what they call delirium or acute confusional state. It really means that your body is under influence of the illness and it's affecting the way your brain is able to process information.
Oh, right.
So your brain is making mistakes, like mistaking one thing for another, and that causes hallucinations or something like that.
I know one day when my other daughter came in, I thought she'd got dressed in wallpaper.
Yeah.
She was wrapped up in wallpaper, as all I could see was
because
her coming down
the shapes and colours in her clothes.
I don't know what it was, but I was convinced she'd got wallpaper on.
Yeah.
And there were things like that, all the time I was in there. It was, but after the operation, when I was on morphine, then the hallucinations were horrible. I had some really nasty things. And
sometimes it can be quite disturbing.
Yes, it was,
delirium generally is a very unpleasant
It was very unpleasant, yeah. But the operation itself went okay, I think. It was 7.5 hours, the actual operation. But I seemed to come out of it okay, and I was, as regards the actual physical part of the operation, it all went well, and I didn't have any complications.
Do you know of any details of what they actually did in that?
Yeah, they did a Whipple's procedure.
Whipple's procedure,
yeah. So, and I don't know exactly what it entails, but he did tell me they had to take a bit of the lower bowel and the gallbladder, and different things had to come, as well as the head of the pancreas. So I've got bits missing that don't bother me at all now, but worried me a bit at the time.
As far as you know, was your pancreatic cancer confined to one part of the pancreas at the time?
Yes, as far as I know, yeah.
So were they able to remove it completely?
Yes, they did. They did remove it completely, yes.
And any particular issues after the Whipple's procedure? For example, viewers watching this now could be facing the same thing. They'll be wondering, I've got this major operation to go through. What am I likely to expect in terms of my recovery and getting back to normal?
As regards the operation, it's quite straightforward, I think. I didn't have any complications with that at all. The only thing I found was the eating and the sickness, although not everybody gets the sickness as far as I know, but I was very sick after the operation. That was the worst thing. The wound and the actual operation itself was fine. Yeah. No.
So was it mainly nausea then that you were suffering? Sicknesses in nausea and feeling like you were really...
No, it was...
what different type of sickness?
Yeah, it was just projectile vomiting.
Oh, okay.
And it just went on and on and on, and it just wouldn't stop. So that's why I had to have a feed bag.
NG tube.
NG tube, yeah.
So you had
I had that for quite a while, yeah.
You had your nutrition, in a bag.
In the bag.
And it was fed into the stomach,
Yeah.
So I'm assuming then your weight was a little bit unstable initially?
I lost quite a lot of weight, about 2 stone, I think.
Yeah.
put it straight back on afterwards, you know, because they made me eat all sorts of, fattening stuff to build you up for the chemotherapy, you see. So
did the dietitian get involved?
The dietitian was very involved, yeah. Yeah, I saw the dietitian most of the time. Yeah.
So they allowed you to have some things that perhaps weren't normally on the menu?
Yeah, well, in the hospital, I didn't actually eat much. I couldn't eat hospital food at all. It was appalling, really. But the girls brought me stuff in, but I didn't have an appetite. It was more when I got home that they started to fatten me up, because there was a gap between my operation and then I started my chemo in February. Okay. So, you know, but in that time, I had the dietitian making me eat cream cakes and everything that was fattening. So it was quite nice, really, because I hadn't eaten cream cakes in ages. So, you know, all sorts of things that were fattening I was eating, yeah. So my weight went back up until they were satisfied, and I was fit enough to start the chemo.
Do you remember that initial period when you were discharged home, but waiting for chemotherapy? Was it an anxiety-provoking time?
I wasn't too bad. I think I was just so grateful to be home. I came home on Christmas Eve.
Oh, wow.
And it was just lovely to be home.
After that 10 weeks in hospital?
After 10 weeks, yeah, because I thought I was never going to get home. I thought I was there forever. It was just so awful in the end. So when I got home, you know, then I started to eat a bit more and started building up. So I was a little bit anxious about the chemo because, you know, it's in the unknown, isn't it? And I'd had a friend who'd been through it, and I knew another lady who'd been through it. So I was, you know, not too worried about it, but a little bit anxious about how it would serve me.
Okay. So after you were discharged from hospital, you went back to your daughter's initially?
I did, yes.
So you could get a little bit of extra support when you needed it?
Yes, and also they advised me not to be on my own at home if it could be avoided while I was on the chemotherapy.
How did you find the chemotherapy, by the way, when you started?
At first it was fine because I didn't feel any effects, but as it went on, I started to feel really poorly sometimes.
Was it hard to tolerate it then, in terms of nausea or fatigue? What were the main
fatigue was really, it was mainly the fatigue, and it sapped all my energy towards the end. I wasn't even going out for a walk very much, you know. At the beginning, I could get out and go for walks and went out quite a bit, but as it went on, I got less and less, you know, it just made me really fatigued. And it was a funny kind of fatigue. It wasn't like just being tired. It was like bone weary.
Yeah, really deep fatigue.
Deep fatigue,
you couldn't shake off.
Yeah, I couldn't shake it off, that's it, yeah.
And how many cycles or how long did the chemotherapy go on for?
6 months.
6 months, so yeah. Quite an in-depth period of chemo.
I had one a week for 3 weeks and then a gap. And then 3 weeks again. Okay. For 6 months.
And did you have to come to the chemotherapy suite?
Yes,
and have it intravenously?
Yes, I did. Yes.
All right. And you know, when you came to the chemotherapy suite, it's quite a busy setting.
Oh yes, it is. Yeah, it's really busy.
Did you manage to talk to anyone else during that period, or meet any other patients, or
not really?
Talk
because
to the staff maybe.
I chatted to the staff quite a bit, but they were too busy to stand around chatting. You know, it's such a busy ward. You don't realise until you've been on. I mean, they just are rushed off their feet. They've not enough staff, but mostly it was different people. Chatted to different people, but I never saw the same people twice.
Yeah, there
was a lot of
I was just wondering, really, do you think the way we offer help to patients going through that experience could be improved? For example, we were thinking of giving patients supportive materials or personal contact when they come in for the chemotherapy suite, for example, in the planning meeting, or even introducing patients to other patients. That's this peer support model.
It'd be difficult, I think, because my chemo only lasted half an hour. some people, the people that were there all day or all afternoon, they got friendly, because they were there a lot longer.
Yeah.
But half an hour, there's not much point in trying to, be friends with somebody, because you're going in half an hour. So they allowed my family, one of the family came, whoever brought me to chemo, sat with me.
That's definitely a positive there,
yeah, that was a good thing.
Okay.
So
how did your body respond to the chemotherapy overall?
Apart from the tiredness, the fatigue, it wasn't too bad.
And were they happy with the way your cancer progressed, as in the treatment? Was it successful for keeping the cancer totally in check?
Yes, it was successful.
What did they tell you in the end about the outlook and how things were for your pancreatic cancer?
All he said really was that the CT scan had shown that it was all clear, that there was nothing nothing in the lymph nodes, and the actual tumour had gone. So I only need to go back now for 6 monthly checks.
So you're in just a routine monitoring now?
Yes.
So you've done really well from the medical side.
Yeah, I'm surprised how well I've actually got in, especially since the chemo finished. I've got so well so quickly that for a start I was not very well, but now I would think about as fit almost as I was before I went in.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you got back to your routines at home. You had put the chemotherapy to one side. You've navigated through that. It's been a 6-month, period. So
going back home was hard.
Yes.
Going back to being on my own, because I'd had Lisa and the 2 grandsons living with them. 8 months I lived with them, so it was hard to go back. And I suffered quite badly with anxiety, and still, I'm still fighting that. But generally now, I'm not doing too badly. I'm going out more, so I've got lots of friends, and we go out, and so I'm more or less getting back to normal.
So you had a good support network around?
All the way, yeah.
And those friends that you knew, they've been supportive throughout?
Yes.
Which is great to have them.
Family and friends. I've had family and friends, to see me through.
Did you find that it was difficult or awkward to talk to them initially about your diagnosis or complications?
No, not really. I don't talk about it. They all know. They were all in shock, because one day, the week before, I'd done a Macmillan tea party, and there was been 20 people there, and the next thing they know, I'm in hospital, and so they were all a bit shocked. But they stuck with me, and since I don't talk about it. There's no need really. It's gone. It was a year of my life, and it's gone.
In a way, that's a good sign. You feel that psychologically you moved on. You don't need to dwell on it.
I can't dwell on it, no, because I get. I don't know. If I go back and think about it or talk about it, I get very, very nervous and very upset. But if I don't think about it and I don't talk about it too much, then I can cope better.
Some people used to say that not talking about it was an issue, like we wanted to always encourage patients to talk as much as possible. They used to call it denial, if you didn't want to talk about it.
They said I was in denial, yeah.
But to be honest, we've reevaluated that, because when we looked at whether patients were anxious or stressed, a lot were, let's say, successfully using your strategy of not talking about it. They didn't need to dwell on it. They wanted to move on.
Yeah,
they were acknowledging they'd had cancer, but it was in the past now, and they wanted to look forward.
Yeah, I think I need to blot it out, to not think about it, And if I do, I think, well, it wasn't me. It didn't happen to me. It's that kind of, it just doesn't feel real. Now I'm better. Now I'm back to how I was.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel real.
Okay, that's interesting. So what's the next step for you going forward? What does the future hold?
Well, hopefully just to get back. I want to go on holiday. That's the next thing. My daughter and I are going away for a weekend sometime in the future, and I'd like to go away next year, have a proper holiday.
Definitely. Have you been restricted up until now to what you could do?
Yes, yeah, I have. It's because I still was getting tired, but I did, I'm walking, I belong to a walking group that called Strollers. I belong to the U3A.
University of the Third Age?
Yeah. And there's quite a big one in Anstey.
Oh, excellent.
And it has all sorts of offshoots like strollers and ride and amble and bird watching and
Brilliant.
quilting and card making and all sorts of things people do.
That's amazing.
And so I'm a member of some of these things, and we do day trips. Like last week we went to Attingham at near Shrewsbury on a bus trip, and the next day we went to Strollers, which is the regular monthly thing that we go to.
Wow, so you're really active nowadays.
I am, yes, I've got back into it, yeah.
So for patients watching this now, maybe at an earlier stage than you, I know outcomes vary, so we can't promise that everyone will do as well as you.
No.
But nevertheless, you seem to have come a really long way in a short space of time.
I have come a long way.
Are there any areas now that are still problematic? Like, are there still some things you're working on improving?
I have problems in the morning. Being on my own, in my own house, I have problems getting started in the morning. I get very anxious in the morning, sometimes have panic attacks. But if I make myself, I can... I make myself get out of bed or get up, get showered. It's an effort. Once I'm up, I seem fine. Yeah, I can buses were going to be a problem, but now I do the buses. I go on the bus. I get my own shopping now. I got my own shopping the other day on my own. So I'm getting really back to normal.
So you're gradually getting back your independence,
yes,
like you were.
Yes. Yeah, it's just this anxiety I've got to get on top of. I'm struggling with that.
Let's just talk for a few minutes about anxiety, because it's something a lot of patients struggle with. No matter what their stage of illness, they often feel that anxiety is there in the background. And funnily enough, often anxiety in the morning. Your anxiety comes in the morning. Now, one pattern that I've observed regularly is that when things are uncertain about what the day might hold, when there's not a clear plan, that's when the anxiety tends to be there.
Yes,
and is that something you notice?
A lot of, If I haven't got if I've got a day stretching ahead of me where I haven't got a plan, I don't, I'm not going to Strollers, or I'm not going to one of the meetings, or I'm not meeting Paula, or I'm not doing something, that is the worst time. And I think, what am I going to do for the day, And I can't seem to work myself up to doing anything in the house or even the garden, and I love gardening. I have a real job with doing stuff like that.
Of course, it's always harder to do something on your own with you relying on your own motivation. But I suspect, correct me if I'm wrong, that if somebody else comes around to the house, family member, you probably are fine. Yeah,
I'm fine. My friend Nancy came 2 weeks ago for the day. And I was in the garden and I was working away, and we did all sorts of things. We did shopping and we did gardening and I was fine.
And often the recovery process is such that you recover well with somebody else around, like with full support. You recover and you're fine. And then you recover a little bit on your own, and then that progresses till you regain your full independence.
Yes.
And I guess a tip for viewers is, if somebody's in a similar situation to you, it is possible to schedule friends and family so that they are regularly coming in to support you.
It's difficult with friends because they've all got different things to do, but I can go and visit if I can bring that. That seems to be I have to work up to that. Go into people's places. I always I get the feeling you never know whether they really want visitors on that day and things, and I know they do. They tell me. But I get very nervous about that.
You get that feedback from them, whether they feel that they're happy to have you come.
They're always happy to have me visit. I'd find it hard to just get motivated to go.
I understand. So then the question is, what can you do when friends and family are not available?
Yeah.
And you still, you're on your own. Maybe the anxiety could build up. Now this is where you can either use your own hobbies and interests as a distraction if they're quite powerful, like if the weather's good, going out into the garden. But there are some other options. For example, simple things in the house, like in the morning, some people swear by a simple routine when they get up. I'll give you an example. Somebody who does, let's say, a little 5 or 10 minute yoga session, maybe on a video, because they can go straight into that, and it becomes their morning routine. It doesn't have to be yoga, it can be something else that you pick up that becomes a routine for you. And it becomes a stepping stone to the day. You know, you don't have to have that indecision first thing in the morning. So that's another thing. Another option is not visiting face to face, but having telephone support, i.e. ringing somebody or vice versa, because it's a little bit more convenient to just speak on the phone, or even these days Skype or other, you know, technology options, they're available. A third option, not for everyone, but online resources. Certain websites, you know, available very regularly. It doesn't have to be cancer related. They can be, you know, chat rooms. There can be internet information. There can be various things. Some people swear by those kind of things. So all various forms of self-help are out there as well. And as you know, our service tries to promote certain self-help materials. Would any of those things help in your situation when friends and family are not as available?
I wouldn't do the internet thing.
One,
Not good with the internet, not good with the laptop. Probably the first option, I need something to... what I've found lately, for a long while I couldn't read. I've always been a big reader. You know, I can get through a book a week easily, sometimes 2 books a week. I could. But once I was poorly, I couldn't read. I couldn't pick a book up. I couldn't read the paper. I lost it. I completely lost it. And that upset me, really upset me, because I couldn't read. But lately I've got back into reading.
Brilliant.
So I have 2 books on at the minute, because I read American detective novels that are a bit gruesome sometimes, so they're read downstairs. And then I have a chick lit type book that I read at night. But I've found that if I read in the morning, that gets me going.
Yes, so you've come up with your own strategy,
so
your own hobby that you like to do. Often it's related, the problem with reading after an illness is related to concentration. That you can't concentrate. Now concentration is impaired by many, many things, but a headline is either anxiety or depression. They can really interfere with concentration, and concentration is one of the first symptoms to disappear when you're anxious, and when the anxiety is gone, it's one of the last symptoms to come back. So it becomes an awkward area, but in your case it has returned.
It started,
In other words, you are back into
about 3 weeks ago. I found I could read a book properly.
And a tip for the viewers is sometimes if you're an avid reader and concentration is a little bit suspect, you can downgrade your reading material, like go back to magazines and newspapers rather than the novels, and then later go back to the more high-end material.
I found I could read my newspaper. I reordered newspapers. I have a newspaper a day. I don't always read it on the same day, but I found I could read the newspaper before I started to read the books again.
That's perfect. And ordering the daily paper is a nice prompt to keeping up with what's going on. It's giving you the stimulus to look at something new, the new material.
And I was lucky really that I've never been much of a daytime television person, but since being back home, we've had the Olympics. And because it was on all day, I've found I got an interest in the Olympics, and I could watch that when I'm feeling really anxious or getting myself all wound up. I could put the television on.
Oh, absolutely, and there's so much good news in there, wasn't there?
So much, and now the Paralympics. So you know, it's something that I wasn't interested in before, but because of my illness, I've got really into it. You know, watching it. I don't put the television on now in the morning first thing, but I was putting it on early, and I found that if I got the television on, I could sit. I felt less anxious with that on. Perfect. And I leave the radio on all the time. I don't like it to be too quiet.
That's another good tip, definitely.
And I leave it on so that when I come home, I'm not coming home to a really quiet house. I come into a voice, which is helpful.
Definitely. So I'm interested in that transition you made when you were staying with your daughter initially, but then you actually moved back in on your own, didn't you?
Yes.
How did you manage to do that? Because it's quite anxiety provoking in a way.
It was, yes. I stayed one weekend with my daughter a few weeks before I moved back, and it was really nice, you know, but I'd got her with me. So it was lovely to be back in my own home. But I went back to Lisa's, and I didn't really do it again. I started off, we had a plan that if I went round in the day and spent a few hours there, then I would be, you know, work up to it. And I did that for a bit. I didn't do it as often as we planned. But then I decided to go and sleep a night. I took it into my head that I would go for one night and just see how I got on my own. And then I decided that after I'd slept there and I was okay, I slept okay, I felt not too bad. So I thought going back to Lisa's would be going backwards, and that it would be silly not to carry on. So I decided to stay. I just bit the bullet and stayed, and I've been there since.
Well done. That's great.
You know, it was a bit of a trauma moving all my stuff back, and I'm still not sorted. It's surprising how much you accumulate in 8 months. But yeah, I'm back, I'm settled.
I bet initially it's anxiety provoking, and perhaps your confidence can be on test, let's say, when you're on your own. But over time, probably your confidence and independence improves.
Yeah.
You know, as time goes on.
As time goes on, yeah, because it was quite scary, and I almost got a bit agoraphobic because I was so worried about going out. I don't know why, but that's how I got, and that passed, and I started to go out. I've got a post box at the end of the road, so you know that was one incentive. I got down to the post box and back. Mostly I waited for people to go with me when I went out, but now I'm fine. I've even been on the bus, and I've not quite gone into town yet. I've not been into town at all, but I've been shopping because I live near Beaumont Leys. I get a nice bus and go shopping on my own. So I'm getting there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Was that agoraphobia for going out on your own?
Yes.
Yes, rather than with other people.
Rather than with other people, yeah.
So you set yourself, this is interesting, you set yourself certain targets, like going to the end of the road with the post box and things like that?
Yes, yeah, I suppose I did, not consciously, but yeah, I think I did.
Yeah.
And there's a little shop just a bit further than the post box, and I started to go there. So that I think that was the first trip I made on my own. And then of course I had to go to the doctors. So although I'd finished blood tests and chemo, I started to go to the doctors for prescriptions and stuff.
Did anything in particular worry you about going out? You know, anything provoking that anxiety?
No, I don't think so. I just, I can't describe the feeling really. Panic. I panicked at the thought of going out. Yeah.
Some people are worried that something untoward might happen. Some people don't like the crowds. Some people don't like being under scrutiny, like being observed. You know, if you feel your appearance has changed.
No, it was nothing conscious. Nothing conscious that I worried about.
Okay.
It was just the thought of actually going.
Yeah.
But you know, as I say, it's only been about a month, and I've really come on.
Definitely.
You know, I'm a bit positive. I am a positive person, or I was before this. You know, I was a really positive person.
Yeah.
It's knocked me for six a little bit positive wise. I'm not as positive as I was, but I think it's coming back.
How much back to your normal self do you think you are now?
Probably 80%.
Okay, that's a pretty good indicator.
Yeah.
I mean, in my view, you've come a long way in that brief period of time. A lot has happened in that last year.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just the fact that you've had that diagnosis to contend with. You had the complications.
Yeah.
You had the extended hospital stay. You had the issues with your eating and the NG tube, also the fatigue afterwards, and then regaining your own independence, going back to your own house, and fighting for your own routines, you know, getting your quality of life back, as they say.
Yeah.
And you've pretty much done that.
I'm nearly there.
So I personally think, given you're the first person we've interviewed with pancreatic cancer, you're an inspirational role model, really.
Well, that's
and
nice.
I wish everyone could do as well as you.
Well, I wish everybody could.
Like I said earlier, we can't.
Sorry.
It's all right. We can't always promise, you know, somebody will have your trajectory, but they can still take a lot from your story.
Yeah.
You know, you fought for your own independence. You were prepared to go back to your own house. You tested it out, and then you went for it in a way. And then you've re-engaged with those community things, the University of Third Age, and your hobbies and interests.
I did that all through my chemo.
Yeah.
Because I've got a friend who picks me up and takes me and brings me back. I did that right all the way through my chemo. It's only once a month.
Yes.
So even though I felt ill and tired sometimes and not very well, I still went. And they were so supportive there. They knew, a lot of the people there knew about my illness, so they were quite supportive as well. So, and always glad to see me. And I carried on, started to go back to church as well. So that was another thing that, although I got picked up and brought back for a while, but now go on my own to church on a Sunday.
There's a lot of benefits, some of them hidden from re-engaging with community activities. For a start, you get that positive feedback from others.
Yeah.
Second, they can see how you're doing, so they can decide how much or how little contact's appropriate. You know, it gives them a chance to start communicating with you a bit more easily.
Yeah. Actually, talking about it, I'm quite surprised.
Yes.
At how I've been doing.
Absolutely, you've done really well.
I seem to have just done it as I've gone along and not thought about it. But looking back,
yes,
you know, it does seem.
And you were saying earlier that in your cancer journey, i.e., in the last year, you didn't feel you'd not necessarily get this far.
Oh, I never did. No, when I was in hospital and after that. And during the chemo, I never ever thought I'd get well again.
Yeah.
I just felt that I was stuck, and I was just going to feel like this forever. You don't ever see a light at the end of the tunnel for a while. That's
one of the odd things about being unwell. When you're suffering and being unwell, most people feel, I can't see this ever resolving. It's either going to be like this or worse.
Yeah.
But you've shown that even though you had that, it did change. It did change for you. And now you're 80%, you know, back to normal.
Back to how I am,
which is really brilliant. So listen, thanks for coming in today and sharing your story. I know I found it very interesting myself, but the viewers will as well.
Thank you.
You know, it's particularly valuable given you're telling the story of a pancreatic condition which we haven't had before. So thanks a lot for coming in, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Take care. I hope things still keep going in a positive direction.
I'm sure they will. Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot.